Hello and welcome to the Watches TV. In watchmaking, the chronograph is one of the most demanding complications to conceive and build. Let's start by addressing a frequent mistake about what a chronograph actually is, because the term is often confused with chronometer. Chronograph comes from the ancient Greek prefix and suffix chronos, which means time, and graphein, which means writing. So, literally, chronograph means writing time, but we know that a chronograph doesn't indeed write time, it displays it. The right word would be a chronoscope then. So, where does the word chronograph comes from and why do we still use it today? In 1822 in France, the French watchmaker Nicolas Rieussec asked the Royal Academy of Science to patent his new invention, a machine able to measure period of time. His machine is a box with two revolving discs on the top, one for the minutes, the other for the seconds, and a clock inside. Pushing a button causes the pen to be inked and move down to mark a dot on the discs. The device came to be known as the chronograph. And despite the vast majority of those who followed had no writing system, the term stuck. But Rieussec was actually not the first in history to build a machine able to measure precise intervals of time. Louis Moinet was a close friend of Abraham Louis Breguet, and in 1816, meaning 8 years before Rieussec, he had created a timing device called the Compteur de tierces, in other words, a counter of thirds able to measure periods of time with a precision of 1/60th of a second. The Compteur of tierces had a balance oscillating at the incredibly high rate of 30 Hertz. To put it in comparison, on modern wristwatches it is of 4 Hertz. This Compteur de tierces was a revolution because it was much smaller than the Rieussec's machine, it was also displaying time with hands, and finally had a so high frequency that it was one of the most precise devices at the moment. It's only about 100 years later that similar chronographs were invented. Astronomy and the first sciences were the first disciplines to require chronographs. The industrialization of the chronograph in the 20s brought prices down and reliability up, resulting in an even bigger demand. Contrarily to all the other functions available in watches, the chronograph is independent from the main function, except for drawing power. The first chronographs had only one pusher to start, stop and reset the function, and they were called mono-pusher. They still exist, but at the beginning of the 20th century, Breitling introduced a second pusher just for the reset function. Chronographs are technically complex and require high precision in manufacturing and assembling the parts, so they all interact perfectly and efficiently together to ensure maximum precision. The dials of chronographs are usually filled with many counters and other indicators that are very appreciated for the technical look they give to the watch. Generally, the central seconds hand is reserved for the chronograph. Being the longest makes it the easiest to read precisely. In addition to the central seconds, chronographs have also additional counters dedicated for the minutes and the hours, and they are often displayed through subdials. On the exterior of the dial, the second scale is often divided into smaller sections representing 1/5 of a second. But don't be surprised if the second hand doesn't point precisely on the dashes when it moves. It is due to the fact that the frequency of the movement is generally not 1/5 of a second, but 1/4 in case of a standard 4 Hz balance, for instance. So, the chronograph second hand rarely lines up with the markers around the dial. However, a few brands do take the timing markers more seriously and design the dials according to the little steps of the second hand. Additional scales are also sometimes present, and among them you have the tachymeter to measure speed, the pulsometer to measure heartbeats, and the telemeter to measure distances. The chronograph is by far the most popular major complication today. And thanks to the effort put in industrializing its production, it is also the most affordable one. A few $100s are enough to buy a reliable entry-level one. But brands and watchmakers have pushed the boundaries much further to offer us more complex chronographs with special functionalities such as the split-seconds chronograph, for instance, or the flyback. So this was for the first episode of our saga about the chronograph. We will go much more into details in the next reports. Stay tuned and see you soon!